Well, there's a statement which is coming in from Mr. Farooq Abdullah, and this is on the Poonch encounter. He's speaking about the terror activities that we have seen of late in the Poonch and Rajouri sector, and he's drawn in an analogy which is rather disturbing. He draws an analogy with Gaza and says that if dialogue is not something which is used as a tool to mitigate the circumstances prevailing in Jammu and Kashmir, then we would also have a scenario or a conflict like we're witnessing right now in Gaza. Let's listen in to what Mr. Abdullah is saying.
मैंने हर बार ये कहा है, वाजपेयी जी ने जो कहा था कि दोस्त बदलाए जा सकते हैं, पड़ोसी बदलाए नहीं जा सकते। अगर हम पड़ोसियों के साथ दोस्ती में रहेंगे तो दोनों तरक्की करेंगे, अगर दुश्मनी में रहेंगे तो हम आगे नहीं बढ़ सकते इतनी तेजी से। फिर मोदी जी का है बयान, प्रधानमंत्री का, कि वॉर इज नॉट एन ऑप्शन नाउ, अब बातचीत से मसले हल करने हैं। कहाँ है वो बातचीत? आज इमरान खान छोड़ दीजिए, आज नवाज शरीफ वहाँ के वजीर आजम बनने वाले हैं। वो चिल्ला चिल्ला के कहते हैं हम बात करेंगे। क्या वजह है कि हम बातचीत के लिए तैयार नहीं है? अगर बातचीत से हमने ये सुलझाया नहीं तो माफ़ी चाहता हूँ आपसे कहने का, हमारा भी वही हाल होगा जो आज गाज़ा का और पैलेस्टीनियन का हो रहा है, जिन पे आज बमबारी की जा रही है इजराइल की तरफ से।
Cutting across to my colleague Ieshan Wani. Ieshan, quite an alarmist analogy that has been drawn.
Well, absolutely right. It's quite disturbing because government is one hand trying to make sure that they're able to prevail peace. But what Farooq Abdullah is ordering the government on is the Poonch incident where 4 army jawans lost their life in that gruesome attack which took place on them. And then suddenly we also heard the news that 4 civilians were allegedly picked by the army were found dead, and the investigation that matter is also going on from the army side. But yes, India has made it clear multiple times that militancy and talks cannot go hand in hand. And has put onus on Pakistan to first stop disturbing peace in Jammu and Kashmir and exporting militants to Kashmir, and then they will be able to hold any such meaningful dialogue, because we already know that multiple times India has had given their hand for dialogue to Pakistan, but then there have been backstabbing at multiple occasions. We've seen it in Kargil, and then we have seen it when Uri attacks took place, or before that as well, multiple occasions when there was dialogue going on to happen between the two countries, but that did not happen. So yes, India's stand is very clear on it, but the analogy that Farooq has drawn is that if they don't find any solution to Jammu and Kashmir and the issue that we are facing in Jammu and Kashmir, it will make the same fate as Gaza and Palestine, which are being bombed by Israel. So it's an interesting analogy that he has made, and one has to see that the government is clear that they don't want to have any such talks, and they will be able to deal with the militancy with an iron fist. No doubt that the army has faced a lot of hardships in dealing with the operation in Poonch and Rajouri sector, but they are confident that they will be able to move ahead with this challenge and try to dismantle the infrastructure that they're able to build there because of the gap that exists on the ground because of the troops movement. But there have been additional troop movement that has been done there. But yes, politics around these issues have been continuing, be it the killing of SSP in Baramulla or the killing of army jawans in Poonch, that is there. But yes, the government is confident that they'll be able to hold on peace and be able to flush out those militants who are hiding in Poonch.
Ieshan, this narrative is not new. I won't go back in history or go to decades earlier. But I remember before the abrogation of Article 370, there were similar statements that were coming in, that if 370s touch, blood would spill in Kashmir, there would be mayhem, it would be a completely, a doomsday situation that would emerge. And these kind of alarmist statements is not something new which comes in from parties, from regional parties, especially NC and the PDP, in line with the narrative that they have told so far, but it's unlikely to cut any kind of ice with the present union government or the centre.
Well, absolutely right. That hasn't deterred the central government from going ahead with the decision making, particularly in terms of action that they've been able to take. Be the government's figure about how the stone pelting has reduced to more than 90%, or the sort of militant-related activities have gone down. Now, the government is very clear that they'll be dealing with it with an iron fist, and there's a policy that the government has devised under which they want to ensure that a militancy-free J&K is created by 2025 or 26. I don't exactly remember the day that the government has set or the deadline has been set. But on the other hand, you have seen that pre-370, there were also slogans that no one will be holding the tricolor if 370 is revoked, or it's a very
Right,
important
right.
link between J&K and Kashmir, rest of India. But political statements aside, the government went ahead, abrogated 370. But now these political parties are cornering them regarding the incidents that are taking place where the army
Right.
jawans and police officials are losing their lives.
Ishan, can I request you to please stay with us on the broadcast? Mr. Sushil Pandit, he's a Kashmiri Pandit activist. He's joining us on the broadcast. Sushil Sab, namaskar. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon. One of the statements coming in from Mr. Farooq Abdullah, and he says that if dialogue is not something which is restored, then Jammu and Kashmir, the situation will become like Gaza. I don't agree with this analogy, and I'm sure neither do you.
Well, I think the shoe is on the other foot. He must tell Jihad this. He's barking up the wrong tree. It is because Jihad did what it did on October 7 that the entire population is in dire straits. Hamas should be asked as to what did they think when they committed October 7. Did they think that they would get away with it like Pakistan did when they did October 26th of November, 26/11 in Mumbai? In Mumbai, did they think that they would bring Israel on the knees as they did India when they took the hostages in Kandahar? The world is done with the patience with jihad. And it is about time that India also demonstrates that it has very little patience with jihad. And we will chase them wherever they are.
Okay. Mr. Pandit, I appreciate you joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective. My colleague Ieshan Wani will continue to stay with us on the show. Once again, playing out the sound reaction or the reaction that came from Mr. Farooq Abdullah.
मैंने हर बार ये कहा है, वाजपेयी जी ने जो कहा था कि दोस्त बदलाए जा सकते हैं, पड़ोसी बदलाए नहीं जा सकते। अगर हम पड़ोसियों के साथ दोस्ती में रहेंगे तो दोनों तरक्की करेंगे, अगर दुश्मनी में रहेंगे तो हम आगे नहीं बढ़ सकते इतनी तेजी से। फिर मोदी जी का है बयान, प्रधानमंत्री का, कि वॉर इज नॉट एन ऑप्शन नाउ, अब बातचीत से मसले हल करने। कहाँ है वो बातचीत? आज इमरान खान छोड़ दीजिए, आज नवाज शरीफ वहाँ के वजीर आजम बनने वाले हैं। वो चिल्ला चिल्ला के कहते हैं हम बात करेंगे। क्या वजह है कि हम बातचीत के लिए तैयार नहीं है? अगर बातचीत से हमने ये सुलझाया नहीं तो माफ़ी चाहता हूँ आपसे कहने का, हमारा भी वही हाल होगा जो आज गाज़ा का और पैलेस्टीनियन का हो रहा है, जिन पे आज बमबारी की जा रही है इजराइल की तरफ से।
My colleague Ieshan Wani continues to stay with us on the broadcast. Ieshan, I'm sure this particular narrative is something that will sit with the parties in the valley. But any word coming in from the BJP or the Congress that you've heard so far? Reactions?
Well, not immediately, but BJP has been repeating that the government has been able to silence critics in terms of presenting the numbers. You heard the Home Minister of India in the Parliament some weeks back, where he said and laid out the number of cases that the agencies have been able to file, particularly stone pelting, crackdown on the financing and funding, and that has reduced the violence. But the parties here, their politics has certainly changed because of the fact that 370 is not there, and then you don't have court going and giving them some breather in terms of the 370 verdict that was delivered. So the political dynamics in Kashmir have changed. They have been targeting pre-370 and post-370, that how the government has failed in Jammu and Kashmir. They are not satisfied with the sort of parameters that the government has been able to present. And particularly Farooq Abdullah has been an outspoken critic of the BJP in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly when it comes to the violence, particularly targeted killings in Kashmir, or be it also the Poonch Rajouri incidents that have taken place, where militants definitely have had some success. And that is something where the regional political parties are able to target the BJP and the central government, that why 370 was promised to Jammu and Kashmir, that the violence will come to an end, militancy will come to an end, that why hasn't that come to an end? That is a question that these political parties are asking.
Absolutely. That's an important part and facet of the narrative. And I'm sure those kind of constructive questions will continue to be asked and addressed as well. But